This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
To the highway in a brand new day. Over the rainbow, gotta let it go. So fast to finger down. Dance tonight together. Here everyone is singing. 你看到我就怕，头皮发麻，我的手。
Welcome back to Open the Voice Gate for October 11th, 2022. We are members of the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. You can find our podcast in the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network feed or on our own dedicated podcast feed on all podcast platforms and applications. You can follow us on Twitter at Open Voice Gate. If you would like to donate to the show, click the link in the show notes. It'll take you to our redcircle.com landing site. You click the red box to sponsor this podcast, and you can set up a one-time or reoccurring donation, no obligation whatsoever. I'm one of your hosts. It's your old pal. I'm Mike Spears, joined alongside, as always, my co-host, Case Lowe. And Case, how are you doing this week?
Doing quite well. This was a busy week for the Dragon system. Took me a lot of time to watch all the stuff that I need to watch, but a lot of it ended up being very good. I will say we will discuss on this podcast a top 10 Dragongate match of the year. And we will cross that bridge when we get to it. But there was a match that I thought was top 10 worthy during this week of shows.
And since we're talking all across the Dragongate world, I mean, it could be anything, you know? It could have been from my friends at Game Changer Wrestling. It might have been one of those matches, which I will talk about. You know, I took the time to sit down and watch what it is that they do, and they very easily could have produced a good match. We'll see if they hit that mark when we talk about it, but it's something that feasibly could have happened. Yeah, no, this is actually a episode that I've been excited about us doing for pretty much since we first got word of everyone going abroad, DGinUSA. So we'll be talking about GCW, West Coast Pro, some Mas Lucha later on in the show. But it was a busy week also for Dragongate in Japan with their monthly Tokyo Korakuen show and a return to Kyoto KBS Hall. So it's a packed episode, Case. I mean, I can't think of there might be like one topic we're leaving off this week, and that's probably just for the sake of time. We're not talking about GLEAT.
We're not talking about GLEAT this week. It is one of those things that I'm open to visiting next week. I did not have the time to sit down and watch Kaito Ishida's GLEAT debut, or Bandito and Commander, who are not technically, Dragongate guys. I guess Bandito is, but they also debuted on that show. I will say GLEAT did just over 1,000 fans in Korakuen Hall, and we have been two people that I don't even know if we've been vocal critics of GLEAT. I just think we've looked at it from a very realistic lens, which is that, hey, this company is seemingly spending a lot of money and not seeming to get giant returns on their investment. But I said last week, if that show doesn't do 1,000 fans, I think they're in trouble, and it did 1,000 fans. So props to GLEAT.
Yeah, it's something that at least when I see that number, I look at it and I'm like, all right, like those were numbers that I was kind of expecting for the company, at least with the people that are involved with it up until this point. So this was kind of
Kaito
like
Ishida debut mixed with the Jun Kasai main event. That is a deal where if that doesn't draw, then you really got to look down at your hands and go like, oh boy, okay, what are we doing here? But and we'll see what happens next time they're in Korakuen, because that was a stacked show, tag team title match main event again with Jun Kasai, the Kaito Ishida debut. Bandito gets over everywhere he goes, so I kind of have to at least put a little sliver of that pie chart in Bandito's favor. A lot of outside names, a lot of special attractions on that show. We'll see where they go from here. Again, it's a roster that I like. It's a roster of talented guys that I enjoy watching wrestle. I enjoy GLEAT every time I watch it. I just worry about them from a practical sense.
Yeah, it's something, at least for me, whenever I see like elite shows, it's not even necessarily like a negativity. I would think for my mindset is I just like look at what they're doing at like one of the most difficult times of what they're doing at, and it's something that it's kind of really took until now for them to do. Like I'm sorry if with a lot of those names there's an expectation of drawing, and to this point it did not happen. However, as of this week, they finally have crossed that bridge where I'm just like, okay, that's about what I would hope to be drawing, basically.
Yeah, they announced their first cheering show, I think, for January of next year in Osaka. I'm not looking at that, but I believe that's what I read, which that'll be a fun draw for me, just in the fact that we've never seen a GLEAT show with cheering fans. So there's a lot to look forward to there, and I think we've done a fair job, being the Dragongate podcast, of covering the things that are either Strong Hearts related or now Kaito Ishida related that matter to the larger Japanese picture. And that is a show that when we cross that bridge, we'll talk about it, because I think it's going to be an interesting atmosphere. I'm very curious to see, given the names that are behind the promotion, if they really up the festive levels for that show, if there's something there that hasn't been able to be presented thus far within the history of the promotion that makes it stand out a little bit more. Because right now, again, I enjoy the product, I enjoy the presentation, I love the way they've handled out Lindemann. It's just, I'm one of the 700 people in Tokyo that would seemingly buy a ticket to their show, and that's a huge problem.
Right, yeah. So I didn't know about that in Osaka, that seems to be one of the places that if I were them, I would be going heavily towards. So that would make sense that they would do that. And one would think that with all the connections with the various people within Lidet, that they could probably, do they announce if it was ED on 2 or if they're doing Taisho for that?
I am almost positive it is ED on 2 on January 8th, first vocal support show. So I would put Kaito Ishida in the biggest match you possibly can on that show. That is his hometown, and I would take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I mean, that'll be the first hometown show that he's had cheers since Champion Gate 2020. So
yeah,
I mean, that's
the first time he's had cheers in his hometown since he wrestled Genki Horiguchi for the Brave Gate belt, which might as well have taken place a million years ago.
Yeah, but we live in the present. We live in 2022, and with Dragongate, one of the more rooted in the future and in the present, we got to talk about this Korakuen show leading off tonight's episode. The Gate of Victory was on the 6th. There was a midweek Korakuen. They don't have as many Thursday Korakuens as they used to. I feel like it's either like Wednesday or Friday, but it'll be up on the network until the 13th. And just off the top case, your review is up on voicesofwrestling.com. I came away pretty happy about everything going into Gate of Destiny coming out of this Korakuen show. It seems like you were of a similar mind about this. Am I right?
Yeah, very much in the category of good show, not a great show. I don't think this is one where I would say, okay, pause this podcast, make sure you listen to it before it expires on the Dragongate Network, then come back to our thoughts. I think this is one where you can listen to us talk about it here and kind of decipher what you need to see. I don't think anything was bad. I even thought the two-hand touch Thanksgiving football 8-man tag was a fun version of that match. It seemed like the middle of the show lacked a little bit of urgency, whereas the first two matches and then the main event, or the first two matches and the last two matches, really mattered in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, this was a fine show. I mean, we'll talk a little bit later. I want to talk when we get to Kyoto about big picture stuff in terms of where we're at right now, and looking back at what we were talking about at the end of July, beginning of August, right out of Kobe World, and kind of the very uncertain times that we were going to get into in September, October, and November, and how they've navigated those waters thus far. I thought this week of shows was a really good snapshot of where they're at. We've obviously done some big picture stuff in terms of Dragongate in the scene as a whole, wrestling in Japan as a whole. I think this is a very good chance to highlight the exact moment that Dragongate is in right now. And this Korakuen show does a very good job of that. with obviously no Shun Skywalker, no SB Kento, La Estrella, or Takuma Fujiwara. The Kyoto show was missing even more guys. But yeah, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, this was a good show. I would recommend watching a few matches from this.
Yeah, it's something that I felt like that this weekend of shows, like we knew it was going to be a thin bench week, but it really kind of came across that way. And the fact that like I came away from both of these shows, but especially of Cork, and incredibly happy with the direction of things going into Osaka next month. I thought that everything was doing, everything hit the level you would want it to do. And then also considering like the fact that you can't really do anything with whatever's kind of high with high end right now. Well, what do you do? Okay, gold class immediately has a little bit of juice now. You can do a 3-way match, and that's what we got set up here. But at the same time, I'm walking away from the showcase. Basically, after intermission, I thought everything was great. Like this might be the first time that in maybe over a year or so that I feel like I've had like 2 notebook matches post intermission in Tokyo Korakuen Hall. It's just not happened a lot because of how they changed the focus of the building. But I felt like that with like the storyline stuff and just the general like the main events that they've been putting on this week was something that I was kind of impressed with, given the thinned roster because of the excursions, because of injuries and everything like this. I came away pretty impressed with this weekend.
It's the one thing I've tried to hammer home when it comes to Cork. And, obviously, and you've done more work on this than anybody, their Cork in attendance has been very strong given the competition. And more importantly, it's been very consistent. The weird thing in the pandemic era for Dragongate, especially post 2020, I don't think they had this issue August, September, November, December, those first few Korakuen shows that they ran right after fans returned to the buildings. But everything after that, the main events have not hit. Now, there was an issue in the early part of last year, especially in the Build to Dead or Alive, where there were these strict curfews on these Korakuen Hall shows. And so we were getting like 8-minute main events, and they just didn't have any time to breathe, and they didn't really feel like main events. And you're exactly right. The last 2 matches on this show felt like old school Dragongate Korakuen main events, which is one of those things, as we talk about Dragongate outreach into the English-speaking fan base, that is something that has to continue to deliver. They can have 4 3/4 star matches in Osaka #2. They can have absolute match of the year classics in Kyoto. They can have whatever they want in Kobe. Ultimately, it does not matter to, I think, most people that can understand this podcast unless it's happening in Korakuen Hall. And luckily, I thought this main event was one of those matches where I would recommend people stop down and take a chance to watch it if they haven't already. But that is something going forward that I really want to see from them, is the post intermission stuff needs to matter. It needs to feel big, and it needs to be great.
And it's something that you talked about, like global outreach right now, and you take a look at the stuff after intermission. And for people who are newer to Dragongate, traditionally they will have basically everything up until 2 matches, up until intermission in Korakuen Hall. Korakuen Hall, sometimes they don't really have intermissions at Korakuen Hall, but it's basically considered those last 2 matches are like the upper card, main event, semi-main. But you look at like the matches and the segments that came out of the 4v4 single match series here, those are all people that when you're doing this kind of outreach, you're going to want to have your Bing K's front and center, because I mean, Bing K immediately got on a plane, went out to San Francisco for West Coast Pro. You want to be able to have them in those kind of roles. And you look at how this show kind of was delineated, for lack of better words here, and it really does feel like that not only like the younger generation is at the forefront and is leading the charge here, but they're positioning it so that at this time we're trying to get more eyes on the product. You have the people that they're going to stick with for a while. You have YAMATO in the main event. You have Dragongate, someone that they're going to they still haven't taken that step back with in a lot of ways. And I feel like that is something that we haven't really had a Korakuen feel like this in a while. We've had great storyline Korakuens. We've had a couple of strong match Korakuens, but we really haven't had like the walk away from Korakuen Hall show going like, wow, all right, everything's full course ahead.
As we've talked a lot about this year of who's influencing what and who has power and who's doing this and who's doing that, I think one of the biggest differences of a pre-OWE split Dragongate and a Ultimo Dragon controlled Toryumon or now Dragongate is that it's very clear when Ultimo has his fingerprints on a Korakuen Hall show, because it's Dragongate does Monday Night Raw more so than Dragongate storms into Korakuen Hall and treats it the same way that a New Japan or an All Japan would, which was, I think, much more the vision when, for lack of a better phrasing, just when Shima was there and Shima had some power, you were guaranteed those really strong back halves. And my point this year, as we've squandered and bickered over who has what and who's backstage and who's quote unquote in the room, is, hey, a lot of this stuff is Ultimo, and this promotion has had shows that feel like a continuation of 2003 Toryumon rather than 2016, 17, 18 Dragongate. This was much more in the vein of a pre-OWE split Dragongate Korakuen Hall show, even if it wasn't phenomenal. Just the tone of it was very similar to that.
Yeah, and it still had a lot of, I feel like, Ultimo touches throughout the show as well. But as we said, it's up on the network until the 13th. You still got about a day or so as the show's reporting. Just going from top to bottom, because there's stuff throughout here. They opened up, and this match is up on YouTube for free into perpetuity. It is Gold Class of Benkei, Kota Minoura, and Minorita defeating the original N2K group of Masaki Mochizuki, Susumu Mochizuki, and Yasushi Kanda, when Benkei got the jackhammer that he's calling the Masakari on Kanda.
Two big points here that are kind of only loosely related to this match. One, two names came to mind when I asked myself this question. I mentioned one of them in the review. One of them I'll mention here. Benkei's charisma transplant. Have you ever seen such a dramatic shift in charisma? The one that came to mind that I wrote in the review was, hey, this is like, maybe not in terms of that like global superstar quality, but just in the way that he went from a guy to a guy. Shinsuke Nakamura, when he returned from Mexico, and I also think you could just look at the beginnings of Akira Tozawa's career, and then where he ended up ending in Dragongate, sort of that transition he made during his excursion in the U.S. Have you ever seen a wrestler other than those guys make the sudden drastic shift the way Benkei has?
I think usually when you see the sudden drastic shift, it's always overdone or it's done in a negative direction instead of Benkei, because this was the thing that Benkei was always missing, was charisma. was
Completely,
charisma, was
yeah.
And was ability here. So it's not even like when you like see like the abrupt like character changes that have happened that you'll see a lot in North American wrestling. This is one in like the direction where like you do have to instantly go to Shinsuke Nakamura, and like that's like, it's not 1-to-1, but it's the closest thing to 1-to-1. And otherwise, because even like Akira Tozawa, that one is much more of a slower thing. It's like, oh, he went away and he came back and was a different man. This is something that it was literally, bored on a road trip. I'm going to just, this is a show that doesn't really matter. I'm going to try this out here. I think I have something here.
It's so bizarre, and it was funny reading the comments of somebody that attended the West Coast Pro Show that Benkei was at, where they're like, hey, haven't been keeping up with Dragongate, thought Benkei was kind of this stoic Japanese warrior type. When did he become a gold chain wearing rapper? And it's just to wrap your head around that. If you would have told me even in June when Keisuke Okuda left the company and we were, sort of murmuring about the future of Benkei, and I was somebody who never, I never heard anything personally that Ben might have been on his way out. We obviously knew he was, real life best friends, or maybe is real life best friends with Keisuke Okuda, but it didn't seem like Ben had any rational landing spot elsewhere, and I had never heard anything. I know other people had of Ben possibly leaving, but if you would have told me at the end of June of like, okay, so here's what's going to happen. Gold Class as we know it is no more. There's no Ishida, there's no Doi, but the unit still exists, and it's not carried by Minoura and Minorita. It's actually carried on the back of Benkei, who is now wearing about 100 pounds worth of gold chains around his neck, and he has this catchphrase where people are losing their minds and lining meet and greets as far back as they can go to do his catchphrase with him. That is a giant leap from where we were in the summer when we had reported that, hey, there was a Kobe Sambo Hall show where Ben and Okuda were doing the intermission meet and greet, and there were like 4 people in their line, which is just unheard of. This transition that he's made is so impressive, because for as talented as Ben is, and we have obviously been the two Ben K guys from his debut onwards, nobody celebrated his win in 2019 more than we did. But I just kind of assumed we had seen the full Ben K experience. I really didn't think he had this in him. And the amazing thing is, I don't look at it so far, and this could change. I don't look at this as like Kurt Angle comedy where it undermines the legitimate background that he has, or it undermines the seriousness of his character. I still think Ben, and I was writing the Ben is going to challenge Yoshioka at Gate of Destiny train harder than anybody. That's not going to be the case. It's YAMATO versus Yoshioka. But feasibly, I mean, Ben could challenge Yoshioka at Final Gate with this character, with this gimmick, with this momentum that he has. And I don't think it would come across foolish at all. I think it would be a really heated match.
It's something where, for like someone like Ben K, it's you go back to the three-way generation war where when he was like a Triangle Gate champion with, like, I think it was Daya and Jason, maybe was the third on that team. Oh no, it was KZ. KZ was the third on that. And Ben would disappear. And it was something that's like, how does someone who is that physically impressive and can do those things disappear? Well, it's just they don't exude any like character with that. And that's always been the knocking point, that now instantly it's something, it's like, oh yeah, he was a Dreamgate champion. They did it. He didn't have an embarrassing run, but it was something. It's like, okay, yeah, now you could say he is a former Dreamgate champion if you need a title challenger, and that's how he was. But now it's something where it's like, oh, maybe you could see what would happen if Ben K with like a run like this. It's like, yeah, maybe it's hot hand and it's the funny act and people like doing chicky, and it does transcend, as we'll talk about later. But it's something that really, at a time where things could be very stagnant and he could sink, and very likely would have sunk, finding this has been like the solve that he's really needed for years.
Yeah, it was that Ben K, Dragon Dia, Strong Machine J, Team Dragon Gate Open the Triangle Gate Championship team, where, in my defense, they won them Champion Gate 2020, so it was right before the pandemic shut everything down. But I do remember doing an episode with you in 2020 and going on this brief monologue about, like, what are they doing with Ben K? He was a Dreamgate champion last year. Now he's doing nothing. And about halfway through, I was like, oh, shit, that's right. He holds the Triangle Gate belts right now. He's literally a champion of this company. But to your point, he just disappeared. It was, I mean, that was a bizarre Triangle Gate team anyways, but Ben certainly did not help matters. He is helping the image of Gold Class as a whole, and that's kind of the other thing that I want to throw at you up top here is, what is the history of this unit? They've existed for 7 months, and they've gone through like 5 phases already. It's just, when the Book of Dragongate is written, which unfortunately I think is going to come down to you and I, how can you even describe what this unit is? It was started as a vehicle to get hot guys, to get women to come to shows, and now it is this Ben K vehicle. It bombed in Kobe. It's been this bizarre thing where, and I thought Jay did a really good job of pointing this out on commentary, where Minorita went from like a sideshow character that was getting bullied to like a vital part of this act that feels like a vital part of the touring roster. Like, it's just the strangest thing. And I Mike, off the top of your head, is there another unit with as complicated of a history as Gold Class, and they're only 7 months into their existence?
Well, you have to go to like short term or like part-time units in a way, because it's like, usually it would be like re-geared after a year or so. Like not always 366. You got to change things up. It just is one of those things that you let it run in its original carnation, unless there's storyline stuff. It's like Antios. Like, that's like the one that's like coming. It's like, yeah, no, this was another unit that couldn't get out of its way and was dead on arrival and just did not really thrive, and they just ultimately had to completely just go back to the drawing board and have RED. But with this, I mean, you think about stuff like Renaissance, like Waku Waku Fuji Lane, stuff that weren't really units or were such short time or bizarre units that they didn't really exist. This was supposed to be a super face unit. Like, that's the wild thing.
I think Renaissance is a really good comp, because that was a Magnum Tokyo creation that Magnum Tokyo wasn't really around for. And so explaining what happened there is really complicated in the same way that, like, yes, this unit was based around Minoura, but it also, Kaito Ishida was really hot coming off of getting kicked out of RED, or at least he seemed like he was really hot, and it seemed like there was going to be this, like, if you would have asked me, and I'm sure we talked about this in April, of like, well, by the end of the year, I'm sure they'll be doing this, like, 1-2 begrudging respect thing between Minoura and Ishida, and they'll be trying to figure out whose unit this really is, and instead Ishida is gone and Doi is unaffiliated, and it's just so odd. It's a unit that I love the concept of, I love the creation of. I still think their Triangle Gate match where they won the belts at Champion Gate is not only, I mean, it's easily a top 10 Dragon Gate match for me this year. It might be a top 10 match in the world, and I know I was higher on it than most people, but I was like, oh my God, they found something here. They have these 3 A-level guys in this Triangle Gate team. This is going to be spectacular. And then they fall by the wayside, and 2 of them are gone for all intents and purposes. And now, again, like, this unit really relies on Minorita to kind of beat the drum, and now there's Ben K there, and it's very strange. It'll be interesting to look back on this. We obviously groan at the existence of an Antios or an Over generation. My thoughts and feelings have changed so dramatically week to week on Gold Class. I am so excited to, be 5 years in the future and look back on this time period, because I have no idea what my impression of this unit will be when they actually go away.
And it's something where it's still clearly evolving, too. Like, this isn't something where, like, the end of Over Generation, it just was so dead that they just had to go find a way just to go take it out back and put it down. This is a unit, it's like, no, there's... You don't have to completely, like, toss the baby out of the bathwater here. Like, that's going to be, the interesting thing. Like, 5 years from now, it's going to be like, okay, so you had the original 3 plus Minorita, and then within 5 months, you completely had to rebuild it. And that's going to be the thing that 5 years from now, I would like to be able to look back and be able to go like, hey, that in the fall of 2022, when Benkei is just always going to come out with like 10 pounds of Cuban link on him. Like, that's these are the weird nuggets that, like, the 2 of us care about that maybe like 5 other people do. So
it's one of those things. And I was reading something that, and I my job here is to steal Alan Forel talking points because I think he's so much smarter than I am. But he was talking in the Voice of Wrestling Discord today about just the amount of footage that we watch. I mean, you think about what we watched this week from all of the different promotions, all of the stuff we had access to, all the stuff that we couldn't even get to that loosely relates to Dragongate. None of it really sinks in. And I find myself doing this podcast on a weekly basis. I think it actually hurts my long-term memory of some of this stuff because I'm giving takes week after week after week. And admittedly, I sometimes forget what, I would love to know, like, okay, what was I thinking in June? But I talk about this stuff so often that it all sort of runs together after a while. I guess I should clarify. I stand firm in my opinions in the moment. It's just as time goes on, I sort of forget where I'm at on some of these things. And this Gold Class one is a perfect example of just like, God, so much happened that I don't know if my memory is going to be of Minoura, Ishida, and Doi bringing out Minorita, or if it's going to be this Ben K thing. I do have to give all the credit in the world to Ben K because we were talking a few weeks ago about how high-end and Gold Class just needed to go away and how this company would be so much better off if they just folded tomorrow. And now Ben has come in and you and I are both going like, well, Gold Class can stick around for a minute. I kind of want to see what Ben K is up to. So it's been such an interesting year, and it's been such an interesting company to cover on a week-by-week basis this year.
Case, if you're wondering why I always take physical notes, it was precisely for that reason that you talk about, so I can go back, because my memory is probably even worse than you. So
yeah, I take note. I at this point I can't watch Dragongate in the moment without taking notes, even on some YouTube stuff. But it's scattered about, and I think about you when I watch these shows sometimes because I'm not as organized as I would like to be, and it's strange. This especially this year, so much has changed on a week to week basis that I was kind of sitting here, first, second week of October, going like, oh boy, all right, where was my head at in February and March, and what has changed as the year has gone on? because there's been a lot of change, and Ben K becoming this charisma machine is not one of the things that I had on my bingo card at the start of the year.
Two other things, or four things I don't think we really had on our bingo card starting this year was the next match. It was combined class 2020, class 2021, class 2022 colliding as M3K's Mochizuki Jr. along with associate Ishin Hashi defeated Kaito Nagano and Ryo Fuda when Ishin Hashi hit the Komata style choke slam onto Fuda. And man, this weekend was a very interesting weekend for Ryo Fuda for me. I've really enjoyed what Fuda has done so far. This was something that we talked about last week, Case, that this was really going to be a big kind of moment for these guys, and especially with how Ishin and Mochizuki Jr. in that building, and boy, did all four of them really just kick off. I mean, like combined, we're talking about four guys who have less than 2.5 years experience amongst the four of them, and they had a excellent 3.5-star match.
Yeah, I mean, who's the oldest guy in this match? Ishin is, and I can look it up real quick, but okay, so
Ishin was both the oldest and the most senior roster member in this match.
Yeah, so Ishin is 20, he'll turn 25 in 2 weeks. He'll turn 25 on October 27th. Yeah, for what this match was, it was remarkable. It goes back to the talking point I've been having about just the way this company develops talent. I will let you have the floor to talk about Fuda here real quick, and feel free to mention the Kyoto match alongside of this, because I kind of think they blend together. Because my takeaway I enjoyed Fuda. I thought he had a nice little weekend. My takeaway from this match specifically was not Fuda related. So please, you have the floor if you have more to say.
Yeah, so I kind of have to talk about the Kyoto match in concert with this. He had a singles match with Minorita, so they've really been having the future classes really go at it. And the thing for Fuda that's really been the interesting thing, and this is going to be a compliment sandwich, Case. This is something
my favorite form of feedback. I'm on board.
He has done a great job, especially when you think that he was in matches with someone like Mochizuki Jr., who is so clearly patented. I mean, it is not just like subtext, it is super text, how much it's like, oh yeah, no, he is his father's son. So he has to differentiate himself in his moveset. This is something that we've talked about since he returned, is the idea that he kind of comes at angles. He's willing to use the ropes to springboard upwards, and it's something that's been a nice kind of thing that needs to differentiate from. And it's something that we kind of got to see that worked both ways between the tag match and the match with Minorita, which I thought that actually that match Minorita until the main event, that was my favorite match on Kyoto. Before we get into Kyoto like that, I really, really enjoyed that. The thing though about Fuda, and it's something that with that path that I talk about him adapting and him being like, oh yeah, I'm a kickboxer, but I'm in a promotion with a pair of father-son kickboxers I need to set out there. So he has that path forward. But the thing that my big takeaway from this, and it's this, here comes the meat of the sandwich here. I need to see and it's very hard to say this, but he's coming up on his year anniversary, and he's really the one that we could take a step back and assess in this way. He needs consistency. He needs to be able to have a good string of months, and some of that's out of his control. But I really kind of need to see that from him before really trying to assess him, because I mean, this is him coming back from a recurrent injury this week, or over the last 2 weeks. So it's something that it's still a nagging thing. But at the same time, I was really impressed because, especially tagging with someone like Kaito Nagano, who, okay, so I'm about to hand it right off back to you to talk about that. I mean, this was a match that could have gone very badly in a lot of different ways. And again, each time I talk about Mochizuki Jr., I talk about how this is a guy who doesn't take a wrong step here. And Fuda, really, it's something that you see these things stick through it, and it's something that makes you want to kind of put up with the injury problems he seems to have.
I think that last point is a great point. That's kind of exactly where I'm at, is there is enough potential there. And look, after his debut match on a show where Takuma Fujiwara and Takumi Hayakawa, now Minorita, debuted, and Shoya Sato debuted the next night, on that show, I was coming away going, yo, who's this Ryo Fuda kid? We nicknamed him the Problem after his first match, and that became a problem when he stopped wrestling for 6 months. But you're exactly right. There was enough potential there with Fuda. There's enough talent that I think you and I both see in him to go like, all right, injury's not ideal. We obviously don't want that to happen, but there's something there that is worth exploring. And I think for him, the best case scenario is that you and I spend every week on this show for the rest of the year kind of doing our weekly Ryo Fuda report. What did he do this week? Because we want him to be healthy enough to discuss on a week in, week out basis. If he misses a bunch of time in November, then it's going to really hinder my thoughts on him overall. I need that consistency. I need that period of time where he's wrestling on every single show. That would be ideal, is that he does not miss a show from here until the end of the year, because I thought he had a really strong week and I was really happy with his output.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what it comes down to, other than if we want to try like to pay off Ho-Ho to send us DMs about what's happening there. But no, we're not going to do that.
Hey, he's not one of my sources. Ho-Ho and I, we're not trading DMs.
No, I'm saying that though, like put down the money, we might be able to get some help there with that. But the overall point with Fuda is, I kind of, as he's approaching the end of his rookie year, kind of want to go blank slate with him until we get to see him get some health consistency here, because he does have that much promise. It's something that no one would want to have the rookie year he had in a lot of ways.
I'm always intrigued by the guys like him, and I guess you can file oddly enough, I think you can file a Kaito Ishida type guy. Although we didn't start like this, he certainly finished his career like this. These sort of thicker kickboxing type guys that might make more sense in a DDT or a Noah, at least on the surface, when they land in Dragongate. And again, there's not many of them. I think Yoshioka could fall into that category a little bit if you look at some of his younger years, but they always really catch my eye, because if they're in Dragongate and they're being pushed and they work that style, I think that means there's really something to what they do. They have some sort of value that the company sees in them. So, we're a month and a half out from his 1 year anniversary. I would hope that he is continuing to do work with Mochizuki Jr. and Ishin Ihashi, who is really what I want to talk about here, is that tandem, because for as much as I enjoyed Fuda and I thought Nagano, played his part well, I was really into the continued teamwork and the growing double team of Ishin and Mochizuki Jr., this uneasy alliance that I think is slowly going to morph into this second generation tag team that I think is really exciting to everyone in Dragongate. I love these guys. The fact that they were able to go from this heated singles feud to this uneasy tag team as seamlessly as they did is something that I'm just going crazy for. This is something that I really hope in 2023 that we're talking about these guys against Shun and Diamante, and we're talking about these guys against Jason and Jackie, or Dragon Kid and Shuji Kondo, whatever the combination is. I think there's a ton of potential with this team, and I think we saw the foundations of it here. And I should also note, before I let you speak on that, I love the fact that this is a match with Mochizuki Jr. and Ishin Ihashi. Masaki Mochizuki is at ringside, but he's not in the match. And who scores the fall? It's not Mochizuki Jr., it's Ishin Ihashi, continuing this trend of Ishin. His original complaint was, well, your daddy wins all of your matches for you. Me, I'm out on my own. Ishin Ihashi in a match with Mochizuki Jr., but without Masaki Mochizuki. Ishin Ihashi is the one that picks up the fall. Just small little bit of storytelling there, but it was something that I picked up on and felt like it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, and I think that's something that works with like this uneasy alliance, where afterwards, both here and in Kyoto, they did a fist bump, but it was basically provoked by Mochizuki Jr. Mochizuki Jr. is ready to move on. It's just like, hey, maybe I have something going on good here, aka maybe someone who could bail me out of situations here. Ishin, not that ready yet. Not ready to put the past behind him. Though I do like the fact that his special gear that he has for like M3K, he already has a huge tear in the pants. They already have had to stitch it up. It actually looks even more cool, the fact that he just have like a big piece of tape on his gear.
am obviously so fascinated with what Dragongate does to these young kids and the body transformation that Ishin has had. I mean, he was a pudgy little kid when he debuted last year, and now he's this chiseled man, and it's just incredible to look at. Like, I really did not think we would be in I didn't think he would ever move away from the singlet. And now he's got these long boys on, and he looks great. His hair looks great. His body looks great. He looks great.
It's something that, like, now, if we really ever truly have a super slow week, like if they decide to add an extra week on to like that holiday vacation they have at the beginning of the year case, and we have another week we need to fill, studying the idea of the thick boys and the singlets in Japan, because that there is a tendency there that, like, because you're absolutely right, because he was he had some chunk to him in it, and that was something. It's like, oh yeah, he's in a singlet there, and it just kind of immediately reminds you of all the other kind of husky guys who wear singlets in wrestling in Japan, because there is a rich vintage of that. If you think about it, I mean, Shingo in this company, you got your favorite wrestler Yoshioka, of course, and then like Shigehiro Irie. Like, there is a rich vein of thick boys that he has passed on.
I've been tweeting about Dragongate for 8 years now. I've seen some tweets come across my timeline that have absolutely stunned me. Mostly horny, mostly very thirsty. I feel like that is a week where you phone a friend and you have a guest. I don't know if I'm the most qualified to talk about the thick boys of Japan. It seems like there's a people that might be chomping at the bit to do that, though.
I mean, the just like it's part of Open the Voice Gate, like, canon, but it's like it's sidebars that we would have, like, discussions here. Like I'm thinking about, like, there was like this show in the UK called, I think it was After Dark, but it basically was like, it started at like 11 o'clock and it went until they were done talking, and they drank and smoked on stage. It was 80s and 90s in the UK.
It sounds like a GCW show.
Right, yeah, but like the thing about it is they just keep on like discussing it, and it's all done very calm. We need to start voice gate discussions here. Not voice gate After Dark. We're not going that far here, but something where like we tackle the singlet, and moving on from the singlet, I think, is a big thing, because now he looks like an absolute like box office star here, and I did not think that way when he was coming out in the pink singlet.
No, not at all.
So let's get through the slow part of Korakuen pretty quickly. We had that touch football 8-man tag. Problem Dragon, Punch Tominaga, Takashi Yoshida, Yosuke Samaria versus Don Fuji, Genki Horiguchi, Konamawa Chikawa, and Ultimo Dragon. Yoshida got a verbal submission out of Konamawa Chikawa when he had him up for the cyber bomb, and as soon as the bell rang, he powerbombed him to the mat. This was the stalker variant of the touch football match, and the amount of stalker in there, greatly raises my spirits when we have a match like this.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun. This is kind of one of those, hey, if you're pressed for time, obviously you're not missing anything, but I really enjoyed the finish of Konami Chikawa submitting while in the powerbomb position. This was, I said in my review, an above average touch football tag team match. I thought this didn't overstay its welcome, actually. It was pretty well paced and pretty funny the entire time.
No, yeah. This is one of the good ones. This is like, if you ever have to show someone what like the touch football match is, you show them a soccer match. I mean, it had Genki in it too, so like you held a bunch of refs there. Tag match after this, it was Natural Vibes team of Jason Lee and Strong Machine J defeating the unaffiliated Eita and Ho-Ho Loon. Strong Machine J submitted Ho-Ho with the diamond frame. Nothing really came out about Eita over the last few weeks, so we kind of continue this uneasy dance where everyone's looking at the door.
I should know, we kind of speculated last week, hey, maybe Eita's going to be Kobe and Osaka and Tokyo. He's been working the house show loop this past week. He was in Mai, he was in Okayama. When that information comes out, we'll obviously talk about it, but this is another one of those deals where I think people might have at least, there's something there, but I guess this is a roundabout way of me saying I don't know what's going on with Eita, but I do think it's worth noting that he worked the house shows this past week.
Yeah, that was something like Mie and Okayama. There were hometown shows with that, but still, you wouldn't really expect it. This Korakuen tag, this was pretty like you had Jason and Ho-Ho in this. It was not it was not a bad tag match case, but this was a match that just because of everyone involved and everything else that was happening on there, just kind of was that match where you can go kind of fast forward through and be like, oh, this was a perfectly good 3.25 star match.
Yeah, I spent my review talking about how this was a match that really made me feel like a what could have been moment, thinking about February and March to recall what happened earlier this year, going like, man, it looks like Eita and Strong Machine J are going to be a unit. This possible Eita Strong Machine J Yosuke Santa Maria babyface unit that just did not happen. So I started thinking about that here. But yeah, it was a perfectly fine match.
Yeah, and that led us into the post match. Kaito Kiyomiya came out and they further built the I need to look up what the exact name of the show is, but it's the Noah and Dragongate joint show next month. As of the time of recording, it is on 11/11. It is I'm playing this, the Global Dream Show, and now they have announced that it will be Kaito Kiyomiya and Yuki Yoshioka versus Keno and Kota Minoura. Does this change your frustration level of the show at all, Case?
No, I'm still annoyed by the mere existence of this show. I don't know what your read on this is. To me, it is, rough advance. Maybe we should book the two champions in a match, and this is what we got. I'm sure this match will be awesome. I'm sure a lot of the matches will be fine, but you're going to review this show. I can't sit down and write about this.
This is a Noah show, buddy. I'm not touching it.
Okay, so who in the Voices of Wrestling side? We're talking to I don't know who does the reviews. Kevin Hare, maybe. I don't know who does the Noah reviews.
Paul or Kevin Hare. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, we'll be passing this one off. I of course am in the market. If anybody wants to commit to consistently reviewing Dragongate Korakuen Hall shows, be my guest. But especially this Noah collab, all you guys knock yourselves out.
Yeah, I kind of like look at this in a way because you like look at that Noah Sumo Hall Junior show that did awful, that they like brought in the Dragongate Juniors, and it just was something that just wasn't going to help out at that point here. I think there's definitely a read there about Kiyomiya and Kano trying to help boost the gate, or on the same token, this other side of the coin, wow, maybe the advance is so hot that we want to get our stars attached to it, to this company that sometimes comes close to doubling our output and our home base building. You can see it both ways.
I feel like we would have heard about that.
Right. Yeah. I'm being charitable. Yes. But yeah,
I mean, look, and now I should note, and again, I mean, God, I would love to know the backstage politics of this show. It's not just getting Kiyomiya on this show; it's also getting Yoshioka on this show, and that he's someone who I don't know if he was on the initial talent list of guys that were booked. He might have had the night off here, and is now, I get the impression Kiyomiya had this date circled on his calendar as a night off, and now he's being asked to work this show.
Yeah, I guess like the thing I'll be really interested about this, like as we get closer to it, and we do have stuff for the Korakuen Hall that Dragongate's having right before this one, be interested in seeing like if it feels like a full push Korakuen Hall from the Dragongate side for their Korakuen Hall show, or if they're trying to hold things in the tank. I don't think they are, given that they booked a 3-way 6-man on that show, but it's something that, can't discount completely out of hand,
I want to note that if you go back to September 4th on the Dragongate Japan English Twitter account, and this is a company-run Twitter account. Obviously, people know that Jay has his own account, but this one is by the books and typically just a translation of whatever is coming from the official Japanese feed. The exact tweet is, and I quote, "Details will be coming very soon regarding the Dragongate and Noah Jr.'s joint live event that was set up today in Osaka," end quote. And with the way this show had been presented until Kiyomiya came out, that was part of my complaint was, hey, wait, why are these Dragongate guys on a Noah Jr. show? If it was presented, let me phrase it to you like this. If the first match that was booked was Yoshioka and Kiyomiya versus Minoura and Kano, I would be way more into this concept. But the way this show had been promoted for the first month was it was Dragongate guys and Noah Juniors. And the addition of these heavyweights leads me to think, okay, we're in trouble here. We need to book some actual stars because the Noah Juniors division, for as innovative and exciting as it has been at points in time, has never, ever drawn and likely will never, ever draw, even if Dragongate's name is attached to it.
Yeah, and like again, looking at it again from the other side of it, I have to imagine that if I was primarily a Noah fan, and it'd be like, oh, all this Dragon Gate stuff, why should I care about this? Like, if you would have had Kiyomi and Kano leading off there, it's like, oh, now I know that it's actually going to be a thing and not just whatever the Stinger guys are doing right now. You know, like it's something that, reversing this probably would have changed a lot of people's at least impressions of the show coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting into the post intermission matches, we have a 4-way singles match series, Natural Vibes versus Z-Brats. They drew the pairings before the match. They did a lottery system where they have the envelopes and slips of paper. But the deal about this one, and that the one that makes it different from the RED versus Masquerade one, was, of course, randomized numbers. And this one was worked kind of on an escalator, where the first match had a 5-minute time limit, and they added 5 minutes to each one until the final match having 20, which is the standard Dragongate non-title match length. So they added the element of time here. I think it's easier to kind of just lump them all in together in case when we talk about this match.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, my big picture thought here is I think every match individually delivered, with KZ versus Hyo probably being the weakest. By the end of UT and Kai, this felt like a very worthwhile exercise in building drama and extending this feud. It took a while to get there. Again, I think the match took a dip in that third segment, but by the end of this, with the ref bump and the run-ins and the flash pin finish, this felt epic by the end of it. And to me, that is mission accomplished.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, this is something that, like, clearly the end point, I've talked about this, like, even with Dangerous Gate, like, the end point has to involve Shun Skywalker. So how are you going to build the stakes while he's not here? And I felt like this was an excellent way of doing so, even leading up to the point that they made a big point of KZ getting the fall in his match against Hyo because of Shun basically running down KZ all over social media over the last few months, and then UT winning it, and the fact that Natural Vibes was ready to kind of be like, all right, now let's take care of this here. And that after the match, that brought up Gold Class because Benkei was called out by his class of 2016 classmate about units being useless right now, and he was the only reason why Gold Class wasn't. But the series, I felt like it was done really well. Like, you had Diamante and JFK leading off for like the sprint match, and it was exactly what you expect there. Shimizu and Hulk was just doing gross stuff for 10 minutes and ending with a 10-minute time limit draw off of the dumbest move ever, which I appreciate.
Where are you at before the finish? Because I critiqued the finish in my review. I didn't like that Hulk hit 2 first flashes and then went for a suplex to the floor. That didn't really make sense to me. But as a 10-minute match, did you enjoy Shimizu versus Hulk as much as I did? Because I thought it was very compelling.
Yeah, Shimizu sold his ass off in this match.
I told you, I said I really wanted Diamante versus Kamei, and I think Shimizu versus Hulk would be a really strong combination, and this is the route that they went.
Yeah, and then like the dumb suplex, like like the idea of, oh, now I know Jay tried to cover for it, but like now going for the count out. Now you can't get a definitive win, really, or it's much more difficult for them to do so, especially the fact that at that point it was Z-Brats 1-0-1. That meant that they had to win their next 2 matches. So, like, I like the booking that you need to have the draw there. I mean, this suplex has been done from the start. Why not have it ruin matches?
I've got to give Jay credit. I had not said anything on the podcast because I didn't think it was a big enough story to talk about, but I thought for the first time since he had been doing commentary, I thought his output in September was a little lower than the average. I didn't think he was on the way he normally is at Dangerous Gate. But he came back with a vengeance here, and I thought he, in the rotating booth of some people that speak no English and then at times ho-ho loon, I thought the English booth was back to being the usual great standard that it is on this show. And that was one of those moments there, him trying to cover for Hulk, trying to sell this kind of victory. Even if it didn't get there with me, the effort was appreciated, so well done to him.
Oh, yeah, for sure. KZ and Hyo, like that one was like, I know that you were a little bit more down on it. I thought that I liked the idea that Hyo was being able to take it to KZ, but that might have just been like a personal thing. I was like, all right, now this didn't really feel like that. It was like the outclassed Hyo that we was seeing 12 months ago. You know, like it felt like, okay, these are two guys who are not necessarily at the same level, but they're not far off from each other. And then UT versus Kai was brilliant. I mean, UT is another person who had himself a very fun weekend, I'd say.
Or have you heard me before rave about the chemistry that UT and Kai have?
Yeah. Remember one of my favorite tag team matches of the last 5 years was based around that chemistry.
That's right. I wanted to be sure that people knew that this is something I had been on before this match, that this is a pairing that I sought out many years ago and said, like, even this was like when Kai wasn't really good in Dragongate yet. And I was still like, okay, I don't really want him here, but if he's going to be here, can he wrestle UT? Because this is a combination of guys that work really well together. And here was a nice little showcase for that. I feel like I must take the victory lap in the UT and Kai chemistry debate.
Yeah, but like it was a thing that was like, oh yeah, UT can go use his body as a jungle gym for 10 minutes. Like that was a thing there. But and instead this time it was like, it was UT just being like laser pointed and trying to survive Kai and then getting an opportunity to do so. It just was really just well done stuff. And then like doing the huge teases, like the pile driver on the chairs on the outside. It's something that with like UT in the position he is, like it felt like a big moment for UT to get the win here, especially given how his path is and how kind of his position in the group. I feel like that was a really cool way to end this match.
I love these sorts of matches. I really think the promotion as a whole is missing the opportunity when it comes to not doing more Nanawa style elimination matches, not doing more stuff like this. That was part of the appeal when I got into this company, was these bizarre elimination matches, these odd stipulations that they put themselves in. I think is an absolute strength of this promotion. And I remember especially during the generational war of 2020 with Dragongate and Toryumon and RED, really thinking they missed an opportunity there by not doing more of those matches. Now, you could say that was such an odd year. That was when the roster was most affected by COVID. They were trying to figure stuff out as they went, and I would not have an argument to that. I think that's entirely fair. But I really hope going forward, and I probably said this in October of last year when they did this with RED and Masquerade, and we haven't really seen a continued effort to do it from now until then, or then until now, rather. But I would really like to see more of this in current Dragongate.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that with this audience and with like the fabric of the promotion, that this is a card that they've always been reluctant to play these kind of cards. Like they will only do so many 3-ways or 4-ways a year, and then they won't do it for 12 months to kind of like do this kind of thing. So the fact that they were willing to go for like a series match here, and then they're following this up with like a 3-way 6-man tag is something that I thought was kind of nice to see them go back to we had a lot of the touchstones with like 1999 to 2003 era over the last few months, but this was like a nice thing to see something of more recent vintage going back.
A main event that felt recent vintage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was D Courage and Madoka Kakuta going up against Dragon Kid, Tsuji Kondo, and Yamato. It was, as I'm looking down my notes, why don't I have the result there? It was okay. So what was the finish on this match? I apologize for that. I usually
it's okay. The finish of this main event. It was
a Galleria.
It was a Galleria to Dragon Dia as Yamato stared into the eyes of Yuki Yoshioka. It was a phenomenal finish.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. I usually have the finishes written down in my notes. With
okay.
That,
normally I don't, so I'm glad I had this one.
There we go. Yeah, this was something that like you bring up that this was like a recent vintage thing. This was like a touring 6-man tag, and I feel like that they got a couple of these out this weekend, and I thought that was really kind of cool to see. And given that Yamato was in the States, they had to do the big thing to build up Gate of Destiny, and I can't think of a better way to build it up than doing that.
That's exactly it. I will spend time and energy talking about D Courage as we speed through that Kyoto show, but I want to focus solely here on one. I will briefly mention the idea that I really hope at Gate of Destiny that it is Dragon Kid and Shuji Kondo versus Daya and Kakuta for the Twin Gate belts, because that is just a really exciting match. The work they did here, and I did not realize it just because I hadn't thought of it, that this was going to be the only, or rather the last chance that Yamato and Yoshioka had to interact with one another before the Gate of Destiny main event. The work they did in this match got me so excited for November 6th. And that is a show that falls on, in America, it'll be a Sunday morning. I'll be watching that show live. I'm looking at the calendar now. Son of a bitch, that is the daylight saving day, which they run Gate of Destiny on this day a lot of years, and it always confuses me as to when the show starts, so we will cross that bridge at another time. I just know I'm going to be really confused that morning now, but it's the first show with vocal fans. It's Yamato versus Yoshioka. They didn't have to do a lot to get me excited. You remember in May, King of Gate, that was the first round matchup at Korakuen Hall, and I said, circle that, put all your money on Yoshioka. He's going to beat Yamato. He did. I didn't anticipate him to win the tournament, but he did. Now they've got this Gate of Destiny match. I don't know where you stand, Mike. I thought their work was so compelling in this match. I thought the opening grappling was the exact sort of thing that I want from Yamato. And then as the match spiraled out of control towards the end, the closing sequence here, Yuki Yoshioka gets taken out with a 619 and a Bermuda moonsault by Dragon Kid on the floor. And then it's Yamato and Dragon Daya. And Daya's chopping away at Yamato. And Dragon Daya is a guy that has a mean chop. This dude can take the skin off of your chest. And he's chopping away and he's chopping away and he's chopping away. And Yamato was unfazed by it. And for the first time in his career that I've seen, and I've watched my fair share of Yamato matches, he rocks back and then takes Dragon Daya's head off with a lariat. I have never seen Yamato do something like this. And then he picks him up, and like I said, he stares directly into the soul of Yoshioka, hits Daya with the Galleria, and pins him. I am in on this match. I'm actually happy. This was so effective that I'm glad there's not going to be a follow-up, because I don't want to see a 3.5-star version of this match on a house show somewhere. This is going to be my final image until they hit the ring in Osaka, and I am totally content with that.
Yeah, it's something that I've always liked this edge from Yamato, where he just always, like, and it's something that the young guys will always try to, like, make a claim to challenge Yamato. Think about the recent Dreamgate champions who all have done so, and thinking about, like, Benkei in that regard. And Yamato will come out here and he'll try to, if you call his name, he will come and do it, and he will take you out coldly as is. Because that was the thing. It was like a cold thing of like, well, you have awoken the beast now. You're getting Yamato, and it is something where I know that there is like a chance in Fukuoka, but come on, it's Fukuoka. You don't need to have them come face to face there, like, because this was the image you want to like leave everyone at going straight into the pay-per-view. Like, they don't have to do anything else there. I mean, you shouldn't need anything else really from your ace and your young champion if you think about it.
No, not at all. This was so effective because the match was great. I went 4.25 on it. But just that lasting image of Yamato rocking Dragon Daya, hitting him with that Galleria, and staring into Yoshioka, I am so in on this. I mean, with just the clap crowd, I almost said the normal crowd, which I was referring to the clap crowd, which that's dark and morbid to think about. But even under that setting, I think it would have been really, really great. But given that we're going to get some vocal interaction here, and given how good the King of Gate match was, I have really high hopes for this main event now. Yoshioka as a champion has been really impressive. I mean, I had confidence in him. I thought he would hit. He has blown away my expectations. Where are you at with Yoshioka as Dreamgate champion right now?
I think he's been a absolute success. I mean, if you really like look at how things were trending and how like the vibe was, and really, it's something that, yeah, it's almost 3 months. We're almost at that halfway point in the 6 months after Kobe World, but it's something that, I mean, I can't think of anything that he has done as champion that has hurt the company's position or anything like this. And if anything, he's like shown that the company was right in giving him the push that they did, and really devoting the first 10 months of this year to be all about him and Daya. Like, it's paid off. It's made perfect sense there, and getting a match. So like we are about 4 weeks out from this. I just like this is a match that I'm very looking forward to, but I don't think there's a Dreamgate match, and that gets me a little concerned about walking in and saying, I don't think there's a Dreamgate match in recent memory that I am so set already and knowing who I think should win this match and who's going to win this match, you know?
You're exactly right. I think it is a 98% chance that Yoshioka wins this match. I think it would devastate me on a personal level, and I think it would be super detrimental to the company if YAMATO won. But that doesn't dampen my excitement for the match, if that makes sense.
No. We don't want to see them mortgage their future for one night, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No. It's something where it's fascinating. And especially with like YAMATO and with like him working in the United States and his PWI interview and talk and like trying to like in his way be the ace while this is all happening. It's been a very fascinating thing that what happens if he launches his 6th Open the Dreamgate title run. I think that's be a very interesting position for him, not more than or just under a year after losing that belt. Like it's a different YAMATO now than it was last year, and that would be an interesting direction as well. I just don't see them mortgaging their future for one house.
In regards to Yoshioka as champion, this Korakuen Hall show did 11:05, which is, other than the Kness retirement show, the most that they have done in Korakuen since the start of the pandemic. I should note that the Kyoto KBS Hall show that we're about to talk about did 2:58. The last time they were in Kyoto, which was all the way back in July, they did 3:03. This is the first non-substantial increase in a house that we've seen pre-Yoshioka versus post-Yoshioka. I do not read anything into that. I do not think it means anything, but it is worth noting that this Kyoto show was down, whereas every other Kobe, Osaka, and Tokyo show and Fukuoka up to this point had been up compared to where it was earlier in the year.
Yeah, the only thing that I would read into that is YAMATO wasn't there. You lost a lot of star power on the show, drawing wise. And YAMATO, yeah,
YAMATO, Ben, Shun, SB Kento, Eita, because Eita was not on this show. In my head, he was, but you're right, he was not. No YAMATO, no Shun, no Eita, no SB Kento, and no Fujiwara. And people can roll their eyes all they want at Fujiwara. I mean, Jay said it the last time he was on the show that, you know, his matches on these smaller shows were becoming a draw of themselves. And no Benkei, which, as we talked about, is something that in the building people really care about right now. I don't think it means anything substantial, but it is something worth pointing out.
Yeah, so getting into this Kyoto show, it'll be up on the network until the 15th. They've started to have wrestler commentary videos, which is kind of confusing, like the way they translate it sometimes, but they have that available as well. I think it's mostly D'Courage on that. It opened up, and this match is on YouTube and will be up on YouTube into perpetuity. It is kind of like a M2K versus Do Fixer kind of reunion in a way, but you had Susumu Mochizuki Jr. and Isha Nahashi representing M3K versus Dragon Kid, Genki Horiguchi, and a rare Ryo Saito appearance, and it was Isha Nahashi getting the win on Genki with a Komada chokeslam. We got a lot of Ryo Saito in this match, Case.
Yeah, we did. We did get a lot of Ryo Saito in this match. It was very strange logging onto Twitter and seeing a throwback photo of Dragon Kid, Genki, and Ryo Saito, arguably one of the greatest Dragongate teams of all time, and then to immediately go into this match and just go like, oh boy, all right. Dragon Kid, same wrestler that he was 20 years ago. Genki and Ryo Saito, not exactly. This was a skippable opener, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ishin really lit up Ryo Saito in this. Like if you're looking for highlights, if you're going to watch the entire thing, Ryo Saito very clearly does not tan anymore, and Isha Nahashi took advantage of that with some chops.
Yeah, that was easily the highlight of this.
Yeah. Then there was the knuckle bump afterwards. This time it seemed like Mochizuki Jr. is more and more into Ishin. Is, you know, he's not that point yet. We had the first of two singles matches on this Kyoto show. Kaito Nagano versus Kota Minoura. Kota Minoura won in 5 minutes and 33 seconds with the Boston Crab, but Kota Minoura in the veteran role. Who would have thought that? As for Kota Minoura, who is 23 years old by my last check.
He's 4 years into his career with this roster, especially with who's left. That makes him a grizzly veteran at this point. And I thought he did an okay job in this role as well.
Yeah, it was something that like my takeaways were, I liked how they emphasized like the size and speed difference here. Nagano again is doing everything you could ask for of him. I like his flipping Pele kick weird thing that he did towards the end there, but nasty Boston Crab here. You know, it's very kind of abrupt seeing Kota Minoura in this kind of match here, and that was kind of.
Yeah, completely agree. Again, 5 minutes, fine, not great. That is the vibe on most of these matches in Kyoto.
Yep, and continuing that vibe is a touch football match. Ultimo Sachioka Boy making an appearance, and Ho-Ho Loon versus Takashi Yoshida. Problem Dragon punched Tominaga. Problem Dragon countered the Orion La Maestra Cradle, countered it 30 seconds into the move. This was very heavy on the Sachi. Very heavy on it.
Boy. The best thing I can say about this match is that Minorita versus Ryofuda followed it.
Hey, another note here. Ultimo started shoot kicking Punch Tominaga before doing the octopus stretch.
I'm glad you brought that up.
This is why I take notes.
So, okay, let's relax. I take notes as well. I am a seasoned journalist, but oh my God! Did I take copious amounts of notes on this match? No, I did not. But I'm very glad that you brought up that Ultimo was shoot kicking Punch.
you gotta, if you dig in deep on the these Kyoto shows, you will strike gold sometimes.
Oh my goodness. Ultimo, in the same way like New Japan's really banking their future right now on Okada doing Inoki tributes, and Ultimo was like, I'm also gonna get in on that. This is a roster full of 22-year-olds that were raised on Dragon Kid matches. I'm gonna carry the Inoki torch going forward.
Oh gosh, just imagine it. I mean, he has the red on it, like his shoulder pauldrons. Like they can make it work. They can make it look like a scarf.
We're not at a point. I think, and again, whatever. I think people really overreacted to the Ultimo Santo stuff at World this year.
Yeah,
we're in trouble when we start getting special fight challenges of like Ultimo Dragon versus unheard of kung fu masters on the undercards of these shows. When that happens, that's when I will sound the alarm. When he goes full Inoki.
Yeah, we're not that stage yet. Singles match, as Case was trying to get me to talk about before I talk about Punch Tominaga getting kicked in the face. It was an important thing to happen on the show.
I'm glad you mentioned it.
Minorita defeated Ryofuda with a key knee lock in 12 minutes and 56 seconds. And what I thought up until the main event, like the best match on the show, one of the best matches on the weekend. I really enjoyed this case. What did you think about it?
I'm going to echo your thoughts from it earlier. It was great to see Fuda work basically a 13-minute match. In Minorita to the same degree, because obviously Minorita has been such a fixture on these shows this year, but it hasn't been in a lot of singles matches, and it hasn't been in a lot of serious singles matches at that. But I will reiterate the point that you made earlier today of this is the type of match that makes the injuries and the uncertainty of Fuda's future that makes it seem worthwhile, and that you hope that he can get on track. Because while this was not a great match by any means, I mean, I think it would have been on the weaker side of what was on Korakuen, but given what this show was, one of the better matches on this show, if you're invested in the future of this company at all, which obviously I think at least with the content we've been doing, I hope some of our listeners care about it. This is a match worth sitting down and watching, because it wasn't great, but it was compelling and it was well worked and it never fell apart, which is the really important thing here.
I'm going to take the opposite thing. This match was great. I thought this was a fascinating match, because think about Minorita Case. This is a guy that was a mascot, that was like a gimmick that, was clearly there because he kind of looked like Kota Minoura, but was much shorter. And he controlled this match, like calling upon like his secret MMA background with it. I'm really impressed with Minorita, like working like this kind of match when you're that undersized and like in a way that does not completely kind of pull you out of it. I thought that was incredibly fascinating stuff, and I was really, really impressed with. Like, I walked away with this. Like, we had our discussion about Fuda here. Minorita really has, in a lot of ways, become the glue of Gold Class, and this match kind of put the cherry on top of that for me.
I think what we're going to discover at some point in time, and it's going to hit us in the face when it happens, and I think Dragongate is going to make the most of it when it does, is that one day it's going to just blow us away that Minorita is really, really good. He's worked with the biggest stars in big matches and has gotten time with all of them all year. Way more so than Ishinihashi has, obviously way more so than Fuda has. Again, we don't even consider him a rookie just because with the snap of the fingers, he was like a guy on the roster. We forget that he's a part of this class of 2021, or at least I do. And I think at some point within the next calendar year, he's going to go on a run of singles matches, and we're all going to have to take a step back and go like, oh, I didn't know it was like this. Like, I didn't realize he was this good. I think that's coming in the not so distant future.
Yeah, and I feel like sneaky performances like that kind of like put the flag up in your mind. It's like, all right, that will happen, and I'll have to like go back and to be like, oh yeah, no, he had like this like technical masterpiece with Ryo Fuda.
He spent the entire year working with like Yamato and Dragon Kid. You know, he's been taken care of, and it's just he's such a strange little character, and, you know, for lack of a better term, such a strange little man that I think we kind of underestimated him to a degree, but he's been focused on and pushed and, more importantly, cared for in ways that most rookies aren't. So it's going to be very interesting to see when he eventually breaks away from this sidekick role, which I think will happen whenever Gold Class ends. I think he's going to get a chance to really shine and showcase all of these things that he's picked up on over the last 7 months or so.
Yeah, and that's good. It'll be interesting to see how it kind of like these things he's picking up as Gold Class kind of like as we try to figure out what Gold Class really is. You know, like as we were saying up top, semi-main event, Jason Lee and Yosuke Santa Maria defeated Hyo and Diamante. Jason Lee got a crucifix hold on Hyo in 14 minutes and 27 seconds. And I say all of that to say, if you're wondering about like this Kyoto show, this was the semi-main event.
Yeah, that, you know what? I mean, I don't have any thoughts on this match. I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about this Kobe Sambo Hall show that is coming up this weekend, which we have a full card announced for. Mike, do you have that card up?
This was a little abrupt, so I had to go scroll back through Twitter.
That's okay, brother.
Because
I got it. I was just curious to see if you were prepared or not. That's okay. I sprung this on you, but I got it. So Kobe Sambo Hall show, October 15th. That is going to be, what is that? That is Saturday morning. A little hot action from Kobe. I'm looking forward to this. I might stay up and watch a little bit of the show live. But we have the full card announced. Ryo Saito, the GM, had a Twitter thread today that Jay roughly translated for us, basically explaining that part of the reason they shifted to these unannounced cards was just to provide COVID flexibility because they didn't know who was going to be on what shows. And now that Japan is slowly moving out of the extreme precautions that have been in place for almost 3 years, that they are going to look into moving back into announcing cards beforehand. And Mike, let's go down this card one by one. Like I said, I've got this card pulled up. I'll read you the card and then you can tell me what sticks out to you. Kicking off with Dragon Daya and Madoka Kikuta versus Mochizuki Jr. and Ishinihashi. There is a Kung Fu Masters match with Jackie Funky Kame, Ho Ho Loon, and Super Shenlong III against Takashi Yoshida, Problem Dragon, and Punch Tamanaga. Really intriguing singles match number 3, Yuki Yoshioka versus Kaito Nagano. 8-man tag here with Ultimo, Dragon Kid, Sachihoko Boy, and our friend Gurrican Mask against Don Fuji, Genki Horiguchi, Konamami Ichikawa, and Big Boss Shimizu. Match number 5 is going to be the M2K team of Masaki Mochizuki, Susumu Mochizuki, and Yasushi Kanda versus Kai, BB Hulk, Diamante. And the card closes out with KZ, UT, and Strong Machine J versus Coach Minoura, Benkei, and Minorita. And the main event, the Open the Brave Gate Championship match, Hyo versus Jason Lee.
Yeah, so now they're at a place they're announcing full cards here, and there's a lot that I like on this card. There's a lot of stuff though I look at. I'm can kind of get a sense of where we're going to go here. But, you know, having the Bravegate match on night 1 of 2 of a doubleheader in Korakuen Hall, I think is smart use of it. They held back Hyo from doing a title match at Dangerous Gate, and you know, continuing kind of crossing the streams with the M3K tag team versus Dai and Kakuta in the opener really sticks out. And then, yeah, as you're saying, having the Dreamgate champion versus Kaito Nagano, these kind of matches when it's a heel champion can get kind of weird here, but it'll be interesting to see how this match ends up being.
That match is so intriguing just because when it was Nagano versus Kai in his debut, Nagano was given so much offense. And I think Yoshioka is going to do the same. I'm just so curious to see what that match looks like because it to your point, it's a babyface versus a rookie, which is a bit of an odd dynamic in this company. But I'm really excited to see what comes of this. Much like you, the opener jumps out to me as something that should be spectacular. And Hyo Jason Lee, I have very high hopes for.
Yeah, it's just interesting that like this is happening. This doubleheader in Kobe is happening while all these people are away. So seeing like the creativity there. I mean, like the summer main event. I mean, Natural Vibes trying to figure out what will be their tandem in that 3-way 6-man match versus Gold Class. I think that's strong as well. But you know, it's nice to see this. It's also something that's like, all right, after Yoshioka and Nagano is over, for those who at that time on the East Coast want to make their breakfast, that might be the match make your breakfast. And right after that, the Nagano Yoshioka match.
Absolutely. That is fun stuff. And that leads us to our Kyoto main event.
Yeah, the Kyoto main event. It was D Courage and Madoka Kakuta versus UT, Big Boss Shimizu, and Jackie Funky Kamei of Natural Vibes. It was Yuki Yoshioka doing the frog splash on JFK to win the match in a strong finish. And yet another like touring match that they're just throwing out here. Like D Courage and Kakuta have become like this main event act against whatever trio they want to have against.
If the year ended today, if I had to turn in my Dragongate top 10, this would finish in my top 10 for the year. I was blown away at this match, and much like in the same way that SB Kento and Jackie Funky Kamei crushed it in Kobe last year to a point that they had to run the match back in Korakuen, I don't know if that Natural Vibe side offers enough star power to headline a Korakuen Hall show, but there needs to be some sort of D-Courage versus, you know, I don't know if the answer is Shimizu KZ and UT. I don't know if the answer is KZ Jason and UT. I don't know what it is. This match needs to headline a Korakuen Hall show because that is a match that can be pimped out. That is a match that I would get, or at least I would hope that people would care about because it would be as good as this and it would take place in Korakuen Hall. Mike, this match had no right being as good as it was. On this, I'm not going to call it a dog shit show, but just this absolute nothing, uneventful, unspectacular show. And then there's this 4.5-star main event that felt like classic Dragongate 6-man tag action. I couldn't believe what I was watching.
And I think something that made it feel so cool was you had babyface versus babyface in the main event. Like, even though you had YAMATO, the ace, in that Korakuen main event there, YAMATO was still being cold as hell, you know, the Galleria. So it wasn't like a pure like babyface versus babyface thing. And that's what you got in that main event. And I think that in a way allows for a different vibe for a kind of match than it would be if it was Natural Vibes versus Z-Brats or D Courage and Kakuta versus Z-Brats. And I think that helps make this match stand out in that regard because you have stuff like Yoshioka and Kamei had the loudest shoulder block exchange to open up this match that I've heard in a long time, and you wouldn't necessarily have that in a heel versus babyface match in Dragon.
No, there was a certain level of fervor to this match. I mean, they worked it with just this batshit level intensity. I specifically, I can just think of Dragon Dia, you know, leaping off the pile and crashing into the Natural Vibes guys in this really reckless and uncontrolled style of way. It was just, again, it's such a bummer the show happened on Kyoto because for all of the people that Dragon Gate's not what it once was. I'm not into the new guys. The new guys haven't caught on. This is one of those matches you go, okay, all right, you got to watch this because if you're not into this, then you got to unsubscribe from the network, move on, don't read the reviews, don't cover it, because at some point you just have to accept this promotion is not for you anymore. Because I mean, this was to me such a high level of wrestling, and like I said, it would be in my top 10. It would be exactly my number 10 if the year ended today. Obviously behind the Kobe tag match, the 5-star match that we saw on the Ultimo show, the Kness retirement, and then a bevy of singles matches. This has been a great year for singles matches in Dragongate. This would be one of the 2 6-man tags that I would have in my top 10, with the other being that aforementioned Gold Class versus Vibes match from Champion Gate in Osaka in March. This is a stop what you're doing and go out of your way to watch this match. I can't point to a specific guy. I can't point to a specific thing, which is the beauty of these 6-man tags. All of it works so well. All of it you need to go out of your way to see.
Yeah, like this is exactly why you watch the random shows that pop up on the network that randomly have. I wasn't as high on you as you on this. I was still 4.25, and that's better than anything else that they did this week. So, or at least in Japan, best thing they did in Japan this week. So I just, it's something where you see a level of inventiveness that you talked about, like literally Dragon Dia does a vault over a pile of people who are on top of the turnbuckle to do a crossbody, just like stuff like that just would not necessarily would make sense with other people there, that they were able to pull off in a really inventive and fun way. And as you said, yeah, this is worth stopping what you're doing and going out to go see.
Really good stuff. If you're into this promotion, especially if you like these guys and you think, it's Kyoto, there's nothing there for me, watch this match. I came away so impressed by it. I hope they run some sort of D-Courage versus Vibes match back in Korakuen so I can write a lot of words about it, because I really, really liked this.
Yeah, no, it's something that I hope that they would pick up on, like they did with SBK versus JFK. But that was not all that happened in the Dragongate world, Kay says. This was the big weekend that we were anticipating this last weekend, with stuff happening, multiple promotions, multiple coasts of the United States, internationally. What should we tackle first, Case?
Let's talk about Mexico real quick, because I don't have a ton there other than that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I do not have the exact date for this. This was on
October 6th.
October 6th. Well, actually, this was happening the same day as Korakuen. So there we go. Have a little bit timeline here, because it's one of those weird things, because of the fake Shun now. The thought has put in my head here. It's I need to keep track of time, and I only thought college football I would care about flight tracking, to see if it's feasible here with that. So yeah, okay, October 6th. So the Torneo Supremo was put on by Mas Lucha. Mas Lucha is a streaming and news, a streaming service. They do Lucha Libre reporting, and occasionally behind their paywall they have exclusive content here. They put together a pretty strong tournament that they announced for this here. It's not something you don't always see, these kind of names in a tournament like Mas Lucha is a Torneo Supremo, and you don't get to see necessarily Shun Skywalker in a tournament like this. But Shun had 2 matches in this tournament. He had a opening round match against Jack Evans, someone who's popped up occasionally in our time with DGinUSA, and then also a phenomenal match with Dragon Lee. So I think it's just worth kind of just talking about these 2 matches and the match that did not happen on this show.
Yeah, I thought the Shun versus Jack Evans match was a lot of fun. I did not expect Shun to wrestle Jack Evans twice on his vacation to the North America parts of the world, but that is what has happened. Obviously, the Deadlock Pro 3-way a few weeks ago with SB Kento, and then here what I thought was basically like a Shun Skywalker TV match that he had with Jack Evans here, which I thought was a ton of fun. And then you have this Dragon Lee match that I went 4 stars with. I mean, it will likely be Shun's highlight of his trip to North America. It was 2 high-level wrestlers going at it, and having basically, if you put Dragon Lee and Shun Skywalker in the G1, I think this is what it would look like. It was this compact, really hard-hitting, really intense match that made the notebook for me.
Yeah, it just was a really kind of remarkable and bizarre, but not bizarre of any negative connotations kind of night. Shun's and Dragon Lee had about 14-minute match that I would say conservatively 5 to 6 minutes of it was exchanging forearms and elbows back and forth.
And then there's another third of it that was dropping each other on their head.
Right, yeah. And because we're keeping track of this here on Open the Voice Gate, we do have a ripped t-shirt in this match. That brings Shun to 2 so far on his trip. So, we had a question about how he was going to get more t-shirts. Well, Court likes him enough to make t-shirts, but I guess he's going through all of his freebies as fast as possible.
Court Bauer, when is the Dragongate footage going to air? You booked a lot of good stuff. I would like to see
month.
it.
Next month, apparently.
Okay, so
Pro
that
Wrestling
sucks.
TV. Yeah, Pro Wrestling TV apparently has it.
I don't know what that is. Do I have to pay for this?
Yeah, it's a streaming service. This is, I think, the one that Choose Your Narrative was on. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna get like Donald Trump fundraiser emails now. I don't. Why? What happened to BN Sports? Why is it not on BN Sports?
It apparently still is on that.
I've got believe it or not, I've got a new woman in my life. I'd love to do a little BN and chill with her. Watch a little Mas Liga. What's the Spanish soccer, the Mexican soccer league called?
La Liga.
La Liga, not Mas Liga. That's more league. We don't need that. Why is it not on BN Sports? Why is it not on YouTube? Court uploads all the shows to YouTube. What is More Wrestling Plus or whatever you said?
I am looking at it right now, and they have this is really something. I don't think it's a pay service because I pulled up it's TNT from the UK, and the match when I pull up the website is Alley Cat versus Martina the Session Moth.
Oh fuck! God damn it!
Yeah, but it looks like it has TNT Wrestling AAA's a part of it. AAA's on it. Warrior, Women's Wrestling Army, and New South Wrestling. So people that you would think would maybe want to more be on IWTV.
Oh God. Okay. All right. Well, obviously, Spears Ovation this week will have a full recap of the Women's Wrestling Army coverage that's there. I know that's something that you're very invested in.
So.
Yeah.
No. That's at the front of the list. Not even talking more about the passing of the biggest star in one of the major countries of wrestling. This goes right.
No. Women's Wrestling Army. Okay. Yeah. So the Dragon Lee versus Shun Skywalker match, if you can get a Mas Lucha Plus subscription, which obviously I have, and I could tell you how to do it, but I'm not going to. It's so simple for me. It's not like somebody just sent me these matches. Worth going out of your way to watch. I thought it was 4 stars, and it's probably a once-in-a-lifetime match. I mean, I did not expect Shun to wrestle anybody of this star level while he was on excursion. So to get this match is pretty exciting for me.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like one of those lucha things where this match that probably never can happen again, it was in Arena Nakapon, and it was behind a paywall
and in front of like a half full arena. Like, I thought this card looked awesome on paper. This is a show I would have liked to have attended in person, and there was nobody there. I don't understand lucha at all.
A couple like just haha notes I have from Jack versus Shun. The state of Jack's stomach, like, we didn't draw attention to this here, but I don't know if he got like a spider bite or something, but like he has like this hole on his stomach that he has like a bandage over in this match that he did not have in Raleigh. Very disturbing. And commentary was talking about MLW a whole lot, and MJF, who was an MLW roster member. That was their reference point to MLW, was MJF.
Jack Evans seems like the type of guy that would have a disease that doctors really don't know what it is, and I'm just going to assume that this hole in his stomach is a medical miracle that we will find out years from now that Jack Evans had before anybody else.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's going to be like Keith Richards, so I just assume he's just boosting his immunities. GCW. Speaking about boosting immunities, there we go. There we go. Fight Club Night 1 and Night 2 from Atlantic City, New Jersey. One night out on the boardwalk, the other one inside the carnival room. And this was one of the bigger weekends, or like the set of matches for Dragongate guys with GCW on it. Just going down the list. First off was Nick Wayne versus Shun Skywalker. Case, how'd you like the match I booked for you?
I thought the match was fine. I think Nick Wayne could very easily hang with the Dragongate roster. I think he would learn. He is one of those guys, given his skill set, he would benefit more than maybe anybody else in the world from just doing a tour with Dragongate and just the little things he could pick up along the way. That's not going to happen. I don't anticipate that happening, but he is maybe the number one with a bullet wrestler that would benefit most from wrestling Dragongate guys every day for a month and a half. I mean, I thought the match was fine. I went like 3.25 on it.
Yeah, like this was one of my big major like exposures to Nick Wayne. He is very good for his age. He is very talented. But
did you see the Nick Wayne versus Ospreay match? Not that I want you to watch more GCW, and that was a GCW match, but did you see Nick Wayne versus Ospreay?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
Like,
all right, yeah, I was really into that one. I've always been about a quarter. I've been about a quarter less excited for Nick Wayne than most people are, but that one, I was like, oh, all right, I get it now.
Yeah, no, like it's very clear what that he has there, and he has the talent there. But like I would co-sign what you're saying, that GCW immediately like just like really makes you like and respect what like Deadlock and Expect the Unexpected Wrestling did, just with like constantly bringing up RED on commentary. Dave Prazak sounding like he wants to be anywhere else, and botching the finish of a guy on your show multiple times.
This is why I hate GCW, and it is what it is. These guys have worked all over the country at this point. They've worked in multiple indies, and far and away, I mean, without question, the worst presentation of these wrestlers happened in GCW. And it's MLJ, who I think so little of as a person from my brief interactions with him, and certainly as a personality in the wrestling industry. I find him to add no value to anything that he does. I find his presence to be so incredibly off-putting. There is nothing that he is associated with that I want to be a part of, just by his presence alone. And for him to be so woefully off base on Shun Skywalker, not lore, not insider information, not deep cuts that I wouldn't really expect an American independent wrestling commentator to know. I'm talking about bare fucking basics. For him to not know what unit Shun Skywalker is in, which is going to be the number one thing that if you're doing commentary on a Dragongate wrestlers match, the one thing you should fucking know is what unit they're in, and then to add insult to injury, to get his finisher wrong by name, not just to, you know what, if he would have confused like Shun Skywalker's move, the Ashla, with the SSW, I wouldn't have liked it. But you know what? Maybe he's never seen a match. Maybe he just saw the In Wrestling tab on his Wikipedia page, and he just happened to say the wrong move. I wouldn't like it. I would still knock him for that, but whatever. But to call the SSW the SBS or whatever he called it, it shows a level of incompetency with this promotion. And my main issue with GCW has and will continue to be, it's not that they exist, because there is garbage wrestling fans out there. There will always be fans that enjoy what I find to be low-level trash. As I said on Twitter, I think they're a trash promotion filled with trash people. I cannot stand what they do, and it is not because they exist, but it is because they continue to exist at the top of the food chain. And it was so depressing talking to Jay earlier this year, realizing that for Dragongate to break out in America again, that they're going to have to do it not through PWG, not through West Coast Pro, not through Defy, not through Prestige. They're going to have to do it through GC who I think so little of. I fucking hate this promotion. I hate the people that are involved with it. I think it is dog shit wrestling. I think it is the lowest common denominator, and they showed it by not knowing anything about these two guys. And the drastic flip is the next night Veda Scott does commentary on the YAMATO match. Veda Scott also does commentary on the Ben K match. And I look, Mike, between you and me, do I think Veda Scott watches Dragongate? Do I think she watched this most recent Korakuen Hall show? No, I do not. But Veda Scott's also a professional, and she could at least sell me the idea that she had an ounce of respect and at least a little bit of knowledge for who these guys are. But MLJ, who, again, I find to be a complete dud of a human. I really don't think he offers anything to the wrestling industry. And Dave Prazak, who, alongside Lenny Leonard, I think is one of the great commentary teams in the history of pro wrestling. But GCW Dave Prazak might as well be commentating with his eyes closed, because he offers no value whatsoever. Watching Shun Skywalker versus Nick Wayne, more so than YAMATO versus Deppen, but watching Skywalker versus Nick Wayne, and then the next night Skywalker versus Blake Christian, where, you know, look, it's the best Blake Christian match I've ever seen. I thought it was actually quite entertaining until the referee fucked up the finish in such a royal way, which again goes to this theory that nobody in this fucking promotion knows what they're doing. I'm so annoyed that I had to watch these two shows, or at least these 4 matches, rather, not like I sat through anything else on these shows. And I'm annoyed that I'm going to have to do it again next week because they booked these Dragongate guys rather in compelling matches, which of course didn't live up to the hype. I mean, Yamato versus Bailey was very good, and we'll talk about it. But I hated everything about this. I don't know what you said that got me going. I didn't think I was going to get here with GCW, but I was fuming watching Skywalker versus Nick Wayne, knowing how little care, the lack of a Google search that went into Shun Skywalker, the hacky, bottom of the barrel, low-hanging fruit Luke Skywalker references that were going on throughout this match. It was horrible. I don't understand how people like this in wrestling talent development in America will continue to be worse for wear as long as GCW is the top US indie promotion, because they are bad for wrestling as a whole.
And all I did was say they got the finish wrong.
Unacceptable. I'm sorry. It is unacceptable. It's one move. Fucking Google it.
Or, backstage, yes, English isn't their first their first language, and there might be a bit of a communications, but I feel like that if you're going to go on commentary, you should probably say like, hey, what's your finish?
Hey, ask me. I have open DMs. There have been numerous commentators that have come to me throughout the years when Dragongate stuff comes up that have reached out to me and asked me questions. I'd be more than happy to do it for Dave Prazak. I respect him. Again, he and Lindy learned together great. He and MLJ, I will be wearing Bose noise canceling headphones next time I have to listen to them call a match, because they were horrific.
The next match on the night was Yamato versus Tony Deppen. Tony Deppen won with a Shining Wizard after a Tombstone pile driver. My note I have on this was aggressively okay.
Yeah, I didn't think this match was any good, actually. And I said last week Deppen will work hard. I think Deppen worked hard, but I didn't care for this.
Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be... I know Deppitz is a funny face guy. I didn't think he would go... that this match would be just about funny faces. The next day they were inside.
Did you see that tweet, by the way? I think he tweeted this out the day of the show, that Deppen tweeted out, like, somebody from outside comes into GCW, they got to work Tony Deppen. If you can't have a good match with Deppen, you can't hang here. And it was like, holy shit, you tweeted that the day you're working Yamato? Oh my God, what is in the water with these people? You're Tony Deppen, relax. Not what? Hey man, if you can't have a good match with Tony Deppen, you hang up them boots, okay? Like what is going on? It's the same. The level of disconnect I have with GCW is the same level of disconnect that I have with people that are excited about the Fiend. Like we're watching two different things.
Okay, so I'm excited for the Fiend, but for entirely different reasons.
I kind of am too. The discourse on the Fiend, I am all about, actually.
I mean, hiring your own comic book nerd to book for the Fiend.
As the pig. Oh, I love that shot of the guy dressed as the pig in the crowd, and I love that he's like a SmackDown exclusive too. That like this is what's gonna Friday nights on Fox.
Demanded it. Fox demanded it. They're like, listen here. Oh, we're in TV season here, and we need to have the Pigman and the Fiend be exclusive. I don't want to see that shit on NBC Universal.
I really want like cut-ins of like the Fiend promotes animation domination. Like the Fiend is doing VO for the new Bob's Burger episode.
The Fiend is a celebrity picker at Big Noon Sunday.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
So like a couple weeks ago, or might have been last week, they were at Iowa, and of course, like with corporate synergy, bring in Biggie, former Iowa player. And Biggie came out there. In case no, you're not a college football person, but Iowa is known that their fans will wear overalls that have the Iowa yellow and black colors on it. And Biggie was wearing that. And of course, Biggie being Biggie, he just wore the overalls. There was no shirt underneath it. I just want to put the Fiend exactly right as how Biggie was there. No shirt, wearing the overalls there, and full Fiend get up, but wearing the yellow and black overalls. Yeah.
Fiend, it's Rutger versus Syracuse this week. Who you got? and then he reads a poem about how Syracuse is gonna win.
Reads a poem about Carrier Dome and breaking the color barrier. Like a very thoughtful and well thought out thing, but it's the Fiend.
Orange is symbolic. Oh my God. Oh, I want that to happen so bad. That's so much fun to think about.
Yeah, and I would say it was more fun than Shun Skywalker versus Blake Christian. I didn't realize that Blake Christian's now a heel.
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. All I can think when I see Blake Christian, I think I said this last week too, was that somebody asked Gabe Sapolsky last year when Masato Yoshida was retiring. They're like, Gabe, who from the NXT roster would you have liked to see wrestle Masato Yoshida? And Gabe's response was Blake Christian. I was like, oh no. Like, wow, you're okay. All right. Gabe's right 9 out of 10 times, and we found the 10th response on this one. I actually
6 maybe out of 10, maybe 5.
7 out of 10. I'll give him. I actually really liked this match until the finish. This was definitely the best Blake Christian match I've ever seen. I thought he was able to hang with Shun. I thought this was a better showcase of what Shun can do. And then again, just a royal fuck up on the finish that just it completely took me out of caring about what I had just watched. At that point, I just wanted to move on to YAMATO versus Speedball and then be done with this.
Well, like, yeah, this was like the best I'll agree with you. Blake Christian looked great because I saw Shun Skywalker like get in, like you've not seen someone catch someone with the thought and care or be exactly in the right spot like this. Like, I don't know how much of this I'm giving credit to Blake Christian when you've seen Shun Skywalker front and center, like save dives and stuff like that. You know,
I think that's entirely fair. It does take two to tango, and I would expect somebody of Blake Christian's caliber to be able to have a really good match with Shun, whether that is because of Shun carrying the weight or not. I up for the viewers' debate there, but I thought it was a good match up until the finish.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who missed the referee's fuck up, and since it was GCW, I was not going back case. I did really enjoy the fact that whatever the fuck it was, Shun had his shoulder up literally as the bell was ringing, like right after three.
I'm sorry, that just reminded me. Can we talk about how Tony Deppen pinned YAMATO? What the fuck was that? And I reached
GCW.
out. Again, just clueless, just had no idea what's going on. And before anybody comes at me and says, well, they obviously run these finishes by the Dragongate office. No, they do not. I checked on that this week. As soon as I found out that Deppen pinned YAMATO, I reached out to somebody that would know. And I would have assumed that indies had to run finishes by Dragongate, but given the amount of L's these guys took this weekend, which I found to be fascinating, and specifically Tony Deppen pinning YAMATO when YAMATO is headlining a pay-per-view next month, it's insulting. It shows they're clueless, and if you can't have a good match with Tony Deppen, you can see yourself out.
But I mean, at the same time, Dragongate should have put their foot down. Like,
100%. I think it's a flaw with Dragongate that they're not having these indies confirm these finishes. It's crazy to me. I was really surprised. I was stunned when Deppen won, and then to know that wasn't given a definite thumbs up by the office, that was a GCW decision, I was really taken aback by.
Yeah, no, that was surprising when you were telling me that. Speaking of YAMATO, the best match out of the GCW matches was YAMATO versus Speedball Mike Bailey, and of course, these two guys would have the best match there. YAMATO won with the Galleria, and this ruled. Like, this was the kind of match I wanted to have out of YAMATO on this tour. Was like this kind of stuff.
Oh god, yeah. No, I went 4.25 on this. I will say the best match out of any of the Dragongate in USA matches that I've seen so far. I wish it would have happened at West Coast Pro, just because I probably would have bumped it up even a 1/4 star, just because I like West Coast Pro so much. But this was everything you'd hope it would be. These were two professionals having a goddamn professional wrestling match.
Great chemistry mesh.
Yes,
great
absolutely.
Chemistry. Like, and Veda, like you mentioned this before, but just to reiterate, I had written down, know this. Veda, if you are someone who has the ability to like call in favors, get someone to commentary for matches of Dragongate people, get Veda Scott. She's the one who's done it the best by far. Like,
yeah. And again, it's not, she's not blowing my mind with what she's doing. She's just, she sells that she cares. She did that with SP Kento versus Estrella. She did that with this match. She did that with the Ben K match. She seems to give a shit. That's all I want. I respond to effort. I don't find it cool not to care, and that goes for anything in life. And this fucking laissez-faire attitude just drives me insane. Veda Scott was great on commentary in this match. This is the best she's done with a Dragongate match thus far.
Yeah, and it's something that I'll lay it out this way. If I came if I was just watching these promotions, I only knew about these promotions because of Dragongate, because of Veda and the way that she conducts herself, and the way that she does the commentary, and with everything like this, I come away with like thinking, okay, if it's a Friday night and I had access to both the shows, I would probably choose the ETU show over GCW, frankly.
Oh, I enjoyed I enjoyed the presentation of ETU far more.
Yeah, like, and just was like a thought of like, if I just came in as the Dragongate fan, that would be what I would care about, because they did this. And again, like, showing the care continues with West Coast Pro Ride the Lightning, Benkei versus Brian Keith, where they made sure to get everything right about Benkei, including his entrance, which was seeing the light in Benkei's eyes when he heard people do the turntable scratch on Nauseam made it all, probably made that flight worth it. You know, he lit up when that happened. Benkei looked like, even though this was like the one show he was randomly booked on, he looked like he had the best time.
Yeah, the West Coast Pro match with Benkei, which again, this rogue Benkei trip to San Francisco, everybody I've asked is like, yeah, we don't really know what's going on there. That's kind of the only thing he's doing. Because he's back in Japan for that Kobe show, so he was just in America for that one match, which is so weird. But I thought the match was okay, but it is West Coast Pro, and I will continue to applaud what they do in terms of nailing the presentation. You know, having at least a loose understanding of what this new Benkei gimmick is. And I thought the match with him was okay. I would go about 3 1/4 on this as well. The thing that bummed me out with these matches is, I don't think Shun Skywalker gained any new fans in either of his matches. I think he came close on both of those. Yamato versus Speedball was great, but people, if they're gonna know Dragongate, they're gonna know Yamato. And then I don't think anybody who hadn't seen Benkei that watched him here went, I gotta see more of this guy. Maybe the gimmick sucked them in, the work didn't.
Yeah,
I was really hoping that Ben was going to crush this one, and that he was going to really make his presence felt, because he's a guy who had never wrestled in America before, and this was his only match. It's not that he shit the bed. It's not that he did poorly. It just wasn't that blow-away match that I would have hoped for.
Yeah, this was exhibition-y. This felt like, and you see this a lot on like indies, like a match that just like, okay, we're going to do like certain things and like this. And I will say that the spear miss spot that they've done now ever since Benkei missed a spear and got back concussion, like
since he got knocked the fuck out,
right? But I mean, they did that here, and that got like, other than like the chicky, that was like the most over thing in this match was leading right into the finish. Brian Keith just elbowing the crap out of him out of the no, it was a knee. He did a kneeing out of it, going straight to the finish. Like, that got a response out of the crowd. So like, it wasn't like that. It was completely just this bizarre thing. Like, Benkei was getting over. It just, you know, if people are going to follow him coming out of that match, it's probably because he's just like, it is genuinely bizarre and compelling to look at him right now and listen to him do commentary. You know, it is legitimately compelling.
To come full circle, Benkei might have won people over with his character work and not his in-ring work.
Yeah, something that I did not think I'd be saying 4 months ago.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Well, this weekend is the Jim Lyman Invitational. It is Yamato versus Zachary Wentz. I'm trying to think if there's other shows. Is Defy this week or Prestige this weekend?
Defy is at the end of October, and I think that's the same weekend as Prestige. I think it is just the Jim Lynam this weekend, which Yamato will be at. That is Friday and Saturday in Chicago, Logan Square Auditorium. A great venue to watch wrestling in. A bad venue for parking. Get there early if you're planning on driving there. But it is Yamato versus Zachary Wentz on the first night. I will be attending the second night, assuming Yamato wins on the first night. I guess that's the way that I will phrase it. So if you see me, please come say hi. And to my knowledge, and this is an update from Mike as well, given some stuff we've talked about off the air, to my knowledge, Yamato is the only Dragongate worker booked for this show.
Yeah, I just actually, while you were talking about that, I was looking at Deadlock has a show this weekend. They're doing the Carolina Classic tournament, and both Shun and SBK are on that show.
Is that a 1-day or a 2-day tournament?
It looks like it's a 2-day tournament. They've only announced this, and La Estrella is on that show as well. So Yamato The people that I'm aware of that are able to travel to the United States, YAMATO is the only one on the AAW show, it seems.
Okay, that is good to know. So Shun versus Andrew Everett is going to be in the Carolina Classic, as well as it looks like Yuya Uemura is on that show. La Estrella is in a triple threat match, and SB Kento versus BK Westbrook, who I think is one of their local guys. Is BK a Carolina guy? Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's like he's one of those Carolina guys that only really works at Deadlock. So yeah.
Okay. That's look, I was very impressed with the Deadlock presentation that I saw, and when the Dragongate guys worked that 3-way there. It is a 1-night tournament, so that is just the 15th. So that 16th. Oh no, that okay. All right, that's the 15th. All right, it's a 1-night tournament on Saturday. That is good to know for my purposes.
Yeah, no, I was not aware that this show was coming up this quickly. So yeah, no, definitely gonna keep an eye out for that one as well.
Speedball versus Colby Carino is on this show. This is a good looking show. Misagura versus Emi Sakura. This Deadlock Pro company is all right. They are on the list with West Coast Pro and Prestige and AAW as indies that I am giving my approval to.
Case low approved indies. Case, are there any more approved indies you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, I can't believe I got all riled up.
And it was like in the last 15 minutes of the show. I
thought I got it all out of my system, and then I started thinking about GCW commentary, and I just got so annoyed.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you there. But if you like to follow the show, best way to do that is on Twitter at OpenVoiceGate. If you'd like to submit a review, we greatly appreciate it. Go to wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Rate and review us. And you can follow Case at _in your case. And I'm at Fujiheya. Thanks for listening to the Voice Gate. We'll be back next week. Take care.